Hello and welcome to Lamplighter. Today is July 12. Today, as we continue to read the prophecies of the prophet Isaiah, I want to remind you, as I have reminded each of us throughout this study, that Isaiah himself is one of the greatest of the messianic prophets. I say that because there are probably more prophecies of the coming Messiah given by Isaiah than by any other prophet. So in today's reading, we're reading in a section entitled Isaiah's Prophecies About Restoration and the Messiah. Now remember, in our reading yesterday, we were starting to see that Isaiah is writing as though Judah has already been carried into exile and that he is there in exile with them in a foreign land. And so as he writes, he's writing about things of hope. He's writing about God's promises to deliver his people, not only delivering them from this Babylonian exile that will be taking place in the very near future, but God ultimately delivering his people by forgiving their sins through the coming of the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of God. And so it's interesting to see how all these prophecies start to unfold. And you'll notice in today's reading that many of these prophecies are those that are quoted in the New Testament, many of which are descriptions of Jesus himself. So as we start the reading today, we have to be reminded that Isaiah, among many other prophets, has been busy speaking out against Judah's sins, and he has been predicting her captivity because of her sin and because of her rebellion. Now remember that all the good things that Hezekiah had done in Judah, even though they were great and wonderful and powerful, it seems that all that good has been forgotten. Isaiah, again, is going to write as though the exile has already taken place after Jerusalem has been destroyed, and he's going to be talking about God's promises of hope, God promising to restore his people back to Jerusalem. So we read these words at the top of page 879. Isaiah declares that his mission at this time is to bring comfort to those already in exile and to those about to be taken captive. God has a further purpose in Isaiah's prophecies. He wants to reveal what is about to happen. Why? So that when it does, the people will know that it is God who is punishing them and it is God who will deliver them. He does not want them to attribute anything to the pagan gods which they worship. To make sure there is no mistake about it, we're going to see God do something very interesting. God is specifically going to reveal the name of Cyrus, the Persian king, who some 150 years later is going to be God's instrument that he uses to bring about the restoration of Israel, bringing his people back home to Jerusalem. Now, as we start the reading today, we see Isaiah talking about their punishment has already happened. It has already been completed. Their sin has been paid for. And now then he turns their attention toward this coming Messiah, this one who will give them hope. And listen to these familiar words that are in the New Testament used to describe John the Baptist. The voice of one calling in the desert, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight in the wilderness a highway for the Lord. I'm having trouble getting the page turned. There we go. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground will become level, the rugged places a plain, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all mankind together will see it, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Again, these are words that are later going to be used to predict or to describe the coming of John the Baptist. We read about the fragility of life, and this is, again, very familiar, even in the New Testament. All men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall, because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flowers fall, but the word of our God stands forever. He is the only constant in life. We know that God is a God of extreme and loving concern. See, the sovereign Lord comes with power, and his arm rules for him. See, his reward is with him, and his recompense accompanies him. Now listen to this tender description of God here. I love this. Speaking of God, Isaiah says, he tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those who have young. God is a loving, caring, concerned God. He loves his people. We then read of God's unlimited power, how there's nothing that God is unable to do. We read about the vulnerability of the nations around them. Before him, all the nations are as nothing. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing. They have no power in and of themselves. Those surrounding nations of Judah might seem to be a threat, but they are nothing in the eyes of God. Then we read of the futility of idolatry. To whom, then, will you compare God? What image could you possibly compare him to? It's ridiculous to think about idolatry. It makes no sense at all. God is the only God. God is the great and powerful creator. He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces the rulers of this world to nothing. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. God calls every star in the sky by name. Is that not incredible? And the only opportunity that man has for strength comes in God. The Lord is the everlasting God. He is the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Those words may be familiar to you as we sing a song, Teach Me, Lord, to Wait. And we quote that very verse in that song as we sing those words. Isaiah then talks about God's providential control over all life. Everything happens under his watchful eye. And then Israel is the chosen ones of God. But you, O Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, you descendants of Abraham, my friend. It's one of the places where Abraham is called a friend of God. I took you, God says, from the ends of the earth. From its farthest corners I called you. I said, you are my servant. I have chosen you and have not rejected you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Wonderful promises of hope given by God. And isn't it amazing that God is still giving so much love, so much care, so much concern, so much hope to these people who have sinned and rebelled against him? He will not give up. Isn't it great to be a lamplighter? His word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. I hope you have a blessed day.